But I think now we've got a brand new view of detoxification, and I think do you find now that the old school? I mean, I used to one of the first things I did when I got out of school, 12 years ago, was put together a stock standard Philip Watkins 14-day liver cleanse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just what we did, right?
Yep.
You put it together to get, all this.
Yeah. And it goes along with that liver cleansing diet.
Right. The old Sandra Cabot, the
most popular non-fiction book in Australia for a couple of decades.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
No.
I mean, and to be fair to her, she really was a trailblazer in that sense. My question to you is that how does the stock standard 14-day Philip Watkins liver cleanse, how would you change that to suit 2020 now? Do you have any new ideas about the old school way of doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I do a package thing, which is a 10-day detox for clients. And so it's probably a good segue into some of those meal replacement drinks that were developed first by Metagenics, the Ultra Clear range.
Sure.
And there was the Ultra Clear Plus, which was pretty good, and now they've got an even upgraded one, which puts in broccoli sprouts and a bit of turmeric. Now, turmeric's generally good for upregulating, and both those two are upregulating phase 2. So, I use this type of program where we're giving them a good fibre. We give them a couple of times a day 2 scoops of this, and they can put it with the juice or just some coconut water. Give them, just basic protein-containing salad at lunchtime, keeping up the amino acids. So these food meal replacements aren't just like a whey powder or a rice powder protein. What they have is all the vitamins, minerals required, decent levels of antioxidants, plus the crucial amino acids to upregulate all of these functions we've mentioned: the glutathionation, the sulfation, the amino acid conjugation, the glucuronidation, the acetylation, and the methylation. They're all in there. Just like, okay, this is not hard. This is biochemistry, and people love making that stuff work. And so you do that a couple of times a day. So they've now got a couple of light calorie meals that are quite satisfying because they're nutritionally rich. You can put something like flaxseed oil into it to give it omega-3, make it last longer, so they feel a bit. And when there's a bit of fat in the meal, then there's more bile gets released, so that's actually part of the tricks. If they have a high triglyceride level, I usually will give them some phosphatidylcholine, and they can put that powder into the same drink. And that's to help with the production of bile and the pulling out of fats from the liver and so on, triglycerides. Anyway, so what are we talking about? A couple of these meal replacements a day with some flaxseed oil in it, a fibre. And my word, people change massively. And that always, I have a few other things I actually do to that program, but that's the guts of it. Anybody can do it. What changes is people's taste. They don't feel like grog afterwards. They don't feel like the sweets afterwards. Once you've regulated those systems, got a lot of the inflammation out, it's like, my word, people change.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice quick way, and I'm sure you found out with your version of your 14-day one, it's pretty basic. But the mistake that some of those old fasting kind of ways did is they stopped all proteins. Don't do that in a detox. You need amino acids.
I think if you get one thing out of this podcast, it is protein is important. Don't forget.
Yeah.
And even if it is just a protein powder in a smoothie, if you're going to do it, just understand that the body uses protein very, very specifically as a currency, in fact, for the liver.
Yeah, particularly phase 2.
Indeed. And I think this is, talk about common things that people can do across the board. This is practitioner and patient as well. And I think, we really don't talk about the, things like even magnesium, for example, and just things that get missed off a little bit more.
The whole thing with sulfation. And so amino acids really, most of the sulfation processes that are going on in the liver, very crucial ones, and again for estrogens as an example, all the steroid hormones and thyroxine and cortisol and adrenaline. So lots of things go through the sulfation system, mostly just the day-to-day necessary detoxing processes internally. But people have a screwed up sulfation system if they can't manage, say, the sulfites in wine, for instance, and that's a hint. But then you're talking about cysteine, taurine. You can use lipoic acid, betaine, or sometimes called trimethylglycine. I mean, I'm only mentioning names because it's good to get a sense of, so I get it. So this is, you put in the amino acids as part of the whole way the liver works. And of course, glutathione made up of 3 amino acids. You get the general gist. It's pretty important. Lipoic acid's worth a quick mention.
For sure. I mean, one of my old favourites, and the only I think it's fair to say I've carried this for years, and sometimes you've got to check some of the old kind of mottos you had, but it was the only water soluble and fat soluble antioxidant, and it's a very unique in that sense. But also, I think one of the cool things that I think you put me onto was that. Was the role that it's having in inflammation with TNF alpha, I believe, and a few other things. But like you said,
inflammasome.
Yeah, it's really it's becoming. I think this is what I kind of love about the direction of, I guess, the science element of functional medicine and natural medicine is that we're now getting a broader understanding of just how wide the spectrum is of some of these things that we've often loved for particular indications, but now we're starting to say, well, hey, I mean, there's alpha lipoic acid in sulfation, when a lot of practitioners, I guess, functional medicine practitioners perhaps, or would say, I just use alpha lipoic acid for diabetes or for blood sugar regulation. So, well, wait a minute, it's, are we making a mistake by kind of pigeonholing it into that, that one indication where someone may miss out on it?
It kind of ends up to be good to know your biochemistry of it, doesn't it? Because, the alpha lipoic acid, apart from having those sugar regulating effects, also recycles the glutathione significantly, so that intracellular glutathione levels raise when people are using lipoic acid. It should be said here, just alpha lipoic acid is the common one because it's biochemically easy to stick in a pill and it doesn't break down. But R lipoic acid, which you can get stabilized forms of, may be one of there's experimentation done by the company that makes it, so with a cynical look, but they're saying up to 50 times more serum activity of actually the processes that lipoic acid can do with the R-lipoic stabilised form. So if you're wanting to use that, I mean, one of the beauties of lipoic acid also is it's very good at bonding lead, and it gets into the brain to do it, which is where you want it with your ADHD kid who's with lead. Actually, that would remind me to say, hey, there's a lot of things getting better about pollution.
Yeah.
Lead being one of them.
Right.
Like, hooray, mid-90s, we got rid of lead from petrol.
Indeed.
And you see now very few problems with lead. And another one, the dioxins, they've come down. And some of these other persistent organic pollutants, they've come down since we've been measuring. I used to be a bit concerned about people having Scottish and Norwegian salmon because there's lots of those in them. That meaning dioxins and the other chlorides, organochlorines and so on. Persistent organic pollutants were high in the North Sea, and in the last decade the levels have dropped down by 2/3 or so. And so, I don't really have to worry about that now when I'm out at the restaurant saving my salmon. That's cool, So environmental changes have seeped through to be reducing the total chemical load that we have. Just thought I'd mention it because it's
I think it's important.
It's good to see that generally.